Hey YouTube friends, today we're gonna make some kombucha. Say what? Kombucha. It's something that my wife and I have really started to enjoy. Over the summer we began drinking it and we've gotten so used to it. We really liked it so much we found we were spending way too much money buying it from the store, and so we've decided that we would start making our own. So we started making our own about 2 months ago and we really enjoy it, and it's easy to make and it's fun to do it yourself. And you know, my channel is all about doing it yourself and using what you have and having fun while you do it. So I'm going to show you how we make our kombucha and encourage you to give it a try yourself. What is kombucha? Kombucha is a fermented, lightly effervescent, sweetened black tea that is also a probiotic. What does that mean? A probiotic means that it has healthy bacteria that are beneficial to your digestive system. We started drinking kombucha to help our digestive system, but we also really enjoy the taste. It's refreshing, has a slightly tart taste to it, but it's also a little bit sweet. And it's good for you. Kombucha is a non-alcoholic drink. Although it is fermented, it is not like wine or beer. It is a different type of bacteria and yeast. In order to make kombucha, you're going to need a few important ingredients: sugar, filtered water, black tea, and or green tea. Most important, you're going to need a starter Kombucha S.C.O.B.Y, which includes liquid starter and a pellicle. This is the mother of your kombucha culture. You only need to buy it once, and I'll leave a link in the description for where we got our kombucha starter. You can also get a starter from a friend who is brewing their own kombucha. There are also many videos online about how to make your own kombucha starter, but we purchased ours. We're going to brew 1 gallon of kombucha tea. So we're going to use a 1 gallon jar. You're also going to need some bottles to bottle your kombucha. You can buy these online, or you can do like we did and simply save the used bottles of kombucha that you purchased from the store. These are reusable, and it's a great way to use what you have on hand for free and save some money. The process for brewing kombucha will be in 2 stages. There will be a primary fermentation where you brew your tea and let it ferment for 1 week, and then there will be a secondary fermentation where you will bottle the kombucha and allow it to ferment for 3 or 4 days before putting it in the refrigerator to stop the fermentation. The purpose of the secondary fermentation is to add carbonation to your kombucha. So during the first stage of fermentation, we will use up all of the carbonation. But in the second stage, in the secondary fermentation, we will trap the carbon dioxide inside the bottle. That's why it's important to use bottles that can handle the pressure and lids that do not leak to allow the carbonation out. Reusing kombucha bottles from the store means that you're using bottles that were designed to hold the carbonation and the pressure of carbonation in the kombucha. This has worked well for us. Now, a word of caution, we are pressurizing these bottles by allowing carbonation to build up inside. That always does create a potential for the bottles to burst. So you don't want to use plastic bottles that can't hold the pressure. Also, you want to be careful not to over ferment your kombucha. because that may create too much pressure inside. But if you follow the steps in this video, you shouldn't have a problem with your bottles bursting. However, I do not recommend using cheap bottles or storing your kombucha for more than 3 days in a very hot environment. The heat will accelerate the fermentation. So we're going to make our tea, and for our recipe we use 3 tea bags of Lipton's black tea, and we use 3 tea bags of Louisiana green tea. And that's just a mixture of green and black that gives us a flavor that we like. Now we're going to add 3 cups of filtered water to our tea. You want to use filtered water because it doesn't have chlorine in it, and the chlorine can kill the SCO.B.Y, the living bacteria that is inside the kombucha. See, kombucha is a living organism, so we want to protect that, and chlorine is in your drinking water for the specific purpose of helping to kill bacteria. So we don't want that in our kombucha. You can use it. We have used it before accidentally, but it's better to use filtered water. You want to bring your tea almost to a boil, and then you can turn it off. And we're going to just let that soak for about 5 minutes. My wife works with a friend at the hospital who also wants to make kombucha, so we're going to share some of our SCO.B.Y with her friend so she can start making her own too. So normally I would hold out 2 cups of SCO.B.Y for our next batch of kombucha, but today I'm going to hold out 4 cups so that we can give 2 cups to her friend and use 2 cups for our next batch of kombucha. So now we have 2 cups of starter SCO.B.Y with the pellicle inside, and we're going to give that to my wife's friend. Then we have 2 cups of starter tea with the SCO.B.Y or the pellicle inside, and that's going to be for our next batch of kombucha. And of course, here is the kombucha that has been brewing for 1 week. And we're going to put this in bottles, and we're going to add some flavoring to it, and that will be our next batch of kombucha. For our bottles, we've simply been reusing the bottles of kombucha that we bought from the grocery store. So this is the KeVita Master Brew Kombucha, and we just bought some of those and saved them up, and so we had enough to hold all of our kombucha. And so far we've used these probably 6 or 7 times, and we haven't had any problems with it. The lids continue to seal, we're not having any leaking, and these are made for kombucha, so they are able to contain the fermentation without having any leaking or spillage or anything like that. All right, now we'll take the tea bags out of our tea, put them in our compost. Add our tea to our jar. To that, we add 1 cup of sugar. Give that a good stir. Get the sugar dissolved. And now we're going to fill this up to within 2 cups of the top with filtered water. Now we want our kombucha to be between 85 and 95 degrees. If it's over 95 degrees, it will kill the Kombucha S.C.O.B.Y. And so we want it to be below 95 degrees. And I'm currently at 82 degrees. It's a little bit cool, but it's okay. It just means it'll take it a little bit longer to get started, but 82 is fine. And we'll just take that S.C.O.B.Y, that pellicle, put it right there on the top. We'll give that a good stir. And I think I'll add a little bit more water in there to fill it up some more. And we're going to let this breathe for the next week as it brews, but we're going to take a coffee filter and put it on top just to keep any dust or anything from getting down in it. And then I like to take a little rubber band and just hold that coffee filter in place. And the last thing I do is take a marker and put the date on top, 12/5. And that just lets me know that a week from now, 7 days from now, I can take this and put my flavoring in it. So that's how we do it. And we'll just put our kombucha up on top of this cabinet here in our kitchen, and it can wait for 7 days to become the beautiful, delicious kombucha that we enjoy. You want to keep it in a place that's room temperature. You know, if it's in a really cold room, it's going to take longer to ferment. If it's too cold, it may not ferment at all. Now, is kombucha safe? It absolutely is. Bacteria is actually a part of your system. It's in your digestive system, good bacteria that helps you digest your food and helps keep you balanced. The kombucha that you drink has good bacteria in it. Now, you need to watch out. You don't want mold. Keep an eye on your kombucha. If it starts to have something that looks like mold growing on the top, and you can tell what mold looks like. Look at these pictures and you can see. It's okay if it has a little bit of foam and fizz. That's actually good. That's the air, the carbon dioxide escaping from the tea as the Kombucha S.C.O.B.Y ferments the tea. That's normal, but mold is not normal. And so we don't want mold in it. If you have any mold growing on the top of your kombucha, just discard it and try again. We've done 6 or 7 batches of kombucha. We haven't had mold a single time, but we always keep an eye out for it because you don't want to eat mold. That's not good for you. For flavoring, you can be creative and just use a lot of different things. We have used bottled fruit juice as one of the main ingredients in our kombucha. However, we've also used fresh fruit, and right now we don't have any fruit juice on hand, so we're just going to try and use up these apples that are in the refrigerator and see how this works. So we're just kind of experimenting with this phase. If you wanted a more consistent flavor, probably using some canned or bottled fruit juice would be better. However, you do want to avoid preservatives because preservatives are meant to sort of get rid of bacteria, and SCOBY in the kombucha is a bacteria. So you don't want to get rid of that bacteria. So definitely choose things that don't have preservatives. We'll put all these apple cores in our compost. Now we're going to add a little bit of water to that just to kind of help it blend up. And then we're going to blend it up as much as possible to get it liquefied. I'm also going to add some grapes in with it. But I'm going to pick through these grapes and make sure we don't have any like that one that have a bad spot on them. For my ginger, I'm just going to add in about that much. It's maybe a tablespoon. I'm going to grate that up. Now I'm going to keep this separate from my grapes just to sort of be able to mix the flavors. If there's too much grape or whatever, I can switch it out. So it'll give me more control. Now we'll add the grapes in to the blender. And let's see how that works. I'll add back a little bit of this just to help it. The blender has trouble if there's no liquid in it. Try that. There we go. Okay, now we're going to start adding our flavoring. We'll add about half of this apple pulp first. Give it a good stir. And now we'll use a straw get a little bit and taste it. Very much apple flavored. A little bitterness from the peel. And now we'll add in some grape. Now, some people add sugar to their flavoring when they put it in. You want it to be a little bit sweeter than you're going to want your end product to be, because what we're going to do now is let this ferment inside our bottles, and so the SCO.B.Y is going to consume some of the sugar that is in the flavored and unfermented kombucha, which means it's not going to be as sweet after that secondary fermentation. We haven't been adding sugar to our flavoring. We just let the sweetness of the apples and the grapes do all of the sweetening for us. Now we're going to strain out all of the pulp and the bits from the kombucha. Next, we'll put all of this into these bottles, and this is going to be for a second fermentation. So we'll ferment for 1 week, the full batch, and then we'll ferment a second time inside these bottles for about 3 days. And that is going to make the kombucha have a carbonation to it. And we like that carbonation, just a little bite that it gives it makes the kombucha that much more delicious to drink. You want to put a lid on it, and you want to put it on nice and tight, because this is going to ferment inside. The kombucha is going to consume sugars in the kombucha and create carbon dioxide, which is going to pressurize the bottle and add that carbonation sparkle to the liquid. But it also means that this is going to be under pressure. You don't want the air to leak out. That's why we like to use these used kombucha bottles, because they were designed to hold that pressure. We'll put these aside for about 3 days at room temperature, and then we'll add them to the refrigerator to stop the carbonation. Now these are all bottled and ready to go, and you'll notice about how much I filled this bottle to the top. Don't fill it too far, because as it pressurizes, when you go to open it, the very first time we made it, we filled them up to here, and when we opened it, the carbonation starts coming out, and it made it want to overflow. And so we had to hold it over the sink and take forever to open it and let the excess pour out into the sink the whole time we did it. So we just, after that, we started filling them up all to about the top of this label on our bottles. Depending on the shape and size of your bottles, it may be different, but you can see about how much headspace we're leaving in that bottle. And that's been working for us just fine. And we haven't had any bottles explode or, you know, leak out or anything like that after about 6 or 7 batches that we've done. So we've enjoyed it very much. And we're just going to let these stay here on the counter for about 3 days. And then we will put them in the refrigerator. As you can see, these that we have here in the refrigerator. That's our last batch. So now it's been 3 or 4 days since we bottled our kombucha, and we're going to test this out, taste it, see how it is. It's always a good idea to open these things over the sink, just in case it does happen to kind of gush out, you know, like a Coca-Cola would if it was too fizzy. Inside the kombucha, you see there's a tiny little pellicle that has formed, and so we're going to filter that out. We'll just use a sieve. Here's a tip. We picked up a bunch of these tiny little sieves from an antique store, and they come in really handy to have a number of them. And they work really good for filtering out the pellicles and any pulp from the kombucha. Look at that fizz. You can see there's a pellicle inside the bottom there, and we'll just dump that out. You could save that, you could give it to a friend, you could split it and have multiple batches. We've just been doing 1 batch at a time. That's enough to keep us busy. And then we'll just rinse this out, put it in the dishwasher, reuse it again. So there you have it. That's how you make your own kombucha. And we've been doing this for a month or 2 now, about 2 months. And it's wonderful. We love it. It tastes just as good or better than what you buy from the store. You can tailor the flavors exactly the way you want them to be. And if you don't like a whole lot of ginger, my wife is not a big fan of really strong ginger. And it seems like all of the flavors that you get from the store have a lot of ginger in them. So we kind of tone down the ginger. You can custom make whatever flavors you want. And you can make it as tart or as strong or as fizzy, or you can even make it flat. You don't have to do the second fermentation if you don't want to. But I drink about 1 of these a day, and it's really good for your digestion. And my wife says it is for hers too. So anyway, try making some kombucha. Leave me a comment. Let me know any questions you have, or let me tell me how it goes for you in your comments. Delicious. S.C.O.B.Y is an acronym that means symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And that is what ferments the tea to turn it into kombucha, which is good for your digestive system. In the Bible, Jesus talked about yeast as well. In Matthew chapter 13, verse 33, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, "The kingdom of God is like yeast that a woman put into 3 measures of wheat. She only put a little bit of yeast in, but it permeated the whole batch." And we know that when we make bread, it makes the bread rise when we add yeast. The yeast consumes sugar in the dough and puts off carbon dioxide, which makes the dough rise, makes soft, fluffy loaves like we like. Yeast also consumes the sugar inside our tea kombucha, and that ferments and creates carbon dioxide, which makes the tea bubbly. And so yeast is an important part of our life, but the kingdom of God is even more important. And sometimes people will say, you know, I don't know if I have enough faith. I don't know if I trust God enough. If you have just a little bit, start with what you have, and it will grow. It will permeate and spread. If you have the kingdom of God, if you put your faith and your trust in Jesus Christ, even just a little bit, it has this uncanny ability to grow and spread and permeate every part of your life. You just have to keep trusting, and you just have to keep doing what He's calling you to do. So let's all do that. Let's get out there and let's grow and be fruitful.